You have to know what areas you need someone to come and fill in. If you haven't figured that out, you just go get another independent person, and you have two independent people trying to satisfy each other, and it's conflict. It's just conflict, because independence says, I don't need anybody. I can do it myself. I don't need anybody. I can do it myself. And so we have two people who don't need each other.
Hello and welcome to another amazing episode of TMC, where we are here to help you take your relationships
from surviving to thriving. On this particular episode, go to TMC Podcast on YouTube. There's going to be a presentation, and so you can get the visual and everything that's happening on this amazing episode. You go ahead and listen in, but I strongly encourage you to go back and go on YouTube and subscribe on YouTube and share it with someone that you love.
Today on TMC, we have Choosing the Ideal Spouse with Mr. Robert Glaspie.
I'm a leadership coach, and how does that dovetail with relationships? Well, over the years, as I've coached leaders, I realized that leadership coaching is really relationship coaching, right? So leaders are really managing relationship. They're managing the relationship with themselves. That whole idea of self-management, emotional intelligence means managing yourself as well as how you relate to others. And then they're managing relationships with people below them. How do you inspire people, motivate them? How do you determine what to give one and what to take from the other? And they're managing people above them. So all those years of leadership coaching, I realized I was relationship coaching. And so I've kind of moved into that space of relationship coaching. So I've been called upon to coach couples, coach individuals, and most of that coaching is about their relationship with other people.
Yeah. And so TMC, just so you would know, Robert Glaspie been mentoring me for 7, 8 years now. I mean, just really changed my life, changed the trajectory of how I see leadership and a lot of things I do. Whatever fields that I'm working in, Robert definitely have a lot of impact to a lot of success and all the things that I have done. So I'm definitely excited about this. Sean, this is our first time I'm having a face up with Robert. So TMC, you along with Shante definitely is in for a treat on today. During one of our mentoring sessions, this probably maybe a couple of months ago, you dealt with these couples and teeing the ball up right now. And I just want you to really kind of go into that.
Okay. Let me kind of set it up. So I guess it's been a couple of months now. I got a call from someone that said, hey, I've got a couples event coming up, and we've gotten together several times. And so what I would like is you to come in and do an exercise for us. She knows that I do exercises, workshops.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, what do you want? She said, well, I don't know. We just need something that's fun, that's going to challenge us. And just know that some of these couples, all know each other. Some have been together a long time, some haven't. There were 3 criteria I always use for any intervention I do, whether it's a workshop or one-on-one. First, it has to be fun. When you're getting together with people, you really want to make it fun for them so that they'll really engage. Second, it needs to be educational. And so they need to learn something. You need to walk away with something. Finally, it needs to be interactive. I don't believe in lecturing. People don't listen to what you say. And they don't learn from what they hear. They learn from what they do. So I had to, kind of satisfy those. So I came up with this exercise of, I started thinking about what is the one thing I think is the biggest challenge that I've heard in my coaching of couples. And that one challenge is when we really go look for a spouse or look for someone we're going to be intimate with or in a long-term relationship with, most of the time we don't give it that much thought about what am I looking for. So you got 2 types of people that go to the grocery store. Some people sit down and make a list and they say, okay, we need soap, we need crackers, we need all this. And some people just go and say, I'll know it when I see it. And that's how we approach looking for someone, because we do it at a very young age, most of us. We're in our 20s, people in their teens. And what do we know in our 20s? So we go out and we meet people and we like them. And so when we like them, for whatever reason, socially, mentally, spiritually, then we say, okay, this must be the one. And then later on in that relationship, then it becomes real, because now you start to see sides of that person, because that's the learning process.
Yeah.
Sides of that person that you say, oh, wow, that's not what I ordered. What it is, you bought it. And so, you just went to the store and you thought you wanted it, and that's what you brought home. And so that was the whole point behind this, of asking that question of these couples. What if you had a chance to go back and really choose, and what would your list look like? So that's what the exercise was. So there were about 6 couples, ranging from been married 2 years all the way, I think, to 20 plus years. And my wife and I were there, and we've been married close to 40 years. Wow. So this is choosing the ideal spouse. And so what I wanted to do, again, make it fun. So I asked them, how many of you have been to Build-A-Bear? And some didn't even know what it was. So Build-A-Bear is a store you can go into, and they sell teddy bears. And kids love it because you get a bear, meaning there's nothing on it. So you can choose the eyes that you want. You choose the nose, the mouth. You can, choose the color you want, the clothes you want to wear it. And you get to give the bear a name. They'll give you a birth certificate. And so you walk out with the bear of your dreams. So I took that concept and called it Build a Spouse. Oh. So if you have a chance to build the ideal spouse, I stay away from the word perfect. And so the scenario I gave them was, someone is about to get married, a younger couple, and they're asking for your advice. As a sage, wise, married couple, what would you tell them they need to look for in a spouse? The point of this exercise is they would give someone advice on how to build the ideal spouse. And so I divided them into 2 teams. I set the men into one room, and the women stayed in one room. And their instructions were, you have a $200 budget, and you can't go over it. So I go into the store, and you get to select 12 items, traits or characteristics that you want. And each one of those have a dollar value. So you're going to have to make some decisions about how you spend that money and what you spend it on. And so this is the list I gave them. Everything from being affectionate, agreeable, ambitious, caring, generous, good communicator. And so they had 15 minutes as a group, and this was a team effort. So as a group, they had 15 minutes. They ended up taking 20 to select 12 items from the list and not go over $200. It was the most eye-opening 20 minutes I've ever seen, because I had a chance to go from room to room and watch them interact. And so probably if I had done this with a couple, it would have been really difficult. But doing it with a group, you got to see how the women approached it versus how the men approached it. Mm-hmm. And that was the first, I think, surprise for me. So they went through the list, and they had to write down, which ones they wanted. And then after that, they all came back into the room, and I said, now it's time to talk about what you experienced, which is what I like to do in all of my workshops. So the room rules were, this is not couples therapy. I didn't come there to work out problems, so don't bring up your stuff. It has to be fun. And you have to tell people that when you do these types of things. So leave all that stuff there. Tonight is not about your spouse, it's about you. So this is a time for self-reflection. This is not about looking at what she may have written on her list. This is about, what did you write and why did you choose that? Nor is this about, is my list what I have? So we had to really deal with that. And again, it's about having fun. And it did turn out to be fun. So once we did that, here's the final list that the women came up with. So we had, 6 women, and they had 20 minutes. And this is what they would give as advice to someone for the ideal spouse, someone who's affectionate, ambitious, driven, emotionally stable, financially stable, healthy, loyal, reliable, respectful, smart, spiritual, and vulnerable. Great list. And we'll talk a little bit about what's not on the list. That's what was interesting.
Wow.
And then the women couldn't wait to see the men's list because they thought they knew what was going to be on the list.
Yeah.
And the first one would say, we knew it. We knew that's what you would choose. Sexually confident, faithful, passionate, emotionally stable, wealthy, healthy, loyal, supportive, respectful, integrity, spiritual, and open-minded. That wasn't the eye-opening part. The next one is the eye-opening part. So what I was able to do in real time while they were talking is compare the list. There were 5 items on both lists that were the same.
Wow.
Both chose, and we're talking groups that didn't even know what the other was selecting. Emotionally stable, both said we want someone healthy, loyal, respectful, spiritual. And I thought that was a good sign. The second one, I was able to do this later and send it back to them. There were 10 items out of the 12 that were similar. So the women said affectionate, the men said sexually confident. Why would I put those together? Because the discussion in the room was the women said, no, we want affection. We just don't want it always to have to be about sex. When we cuddle up next to you, we're not asking for, we want affection. And the men, and they said, all you want is sex. And so the men said, when we say sexually confident, what we're saying is we want a woman who is confident enough sexually to pursue us sometime. We don't want to always have to be the one to initiate it.
Wow.
And so it was that discussion that you got into why they had chosen what they had chosen. Because on its face, when you see sexually confident, you say, oh, that's all he's thinking about. But the way they described it had nothing to do with what you would think it was. And so passionate and driven, they talked about the same thing. Reliable and supportive or similar. The woman said, I want a man who's reliable. And he says, I want a woman who's supportive. When I come home, and I've been out there grinding all day, I don't need you to dump me either. I want you to support me. It's not about just supporting my dreams. It's about that daily support.
I want us to get this. Look at this. So you're looking at the man's side and the woman's side, and it's different words, but it's similar. I'm sitting here looking at this and how similar. One side, the woman say financially stable, the men say wealthy. It's kind of the same thing. And so that kind of put me in the mind of how men and women can have conflicts within the relationship because we can be saying the same thing, but using different words.
Words matter. And you don't try to find out what's behind those words, then all you're doing is interpreting it. Once it leaves my mouth, it says something different in your head. So I need to know what you heard, not just what I said, because communication is talking and listening. So did you hear what I said? And maybe not. And because it's going through my filter and I own that now. It's not your words anymore. It's my interpretation of your words. And that's why that conversation is so healthy. Even the last one, open-minded and vulnerable. When the women described vulnerable, they weren't talking about a weak man. They were basically talking about someone who would talk, who would be okay, being open about his feelings. The men said, well, if you were more open-minded, we would be that way. So they ended up talking about the same thing from a different angle.
Robert, before you move on, can you do this for us?
Yep.
So give us some practical steps, like right now with this. What are some practical steps when a man and woman is having a husband and wife having a conversation? What are some follow-up steps? Because you said it, I just want, make sure we got that. But, some follow-up questions to make sure you understand not what you think I heard, but what I really mean.
To avoid misinterpretation. Yes.
Yeah. So it's the same, not just for couples or anybody, same everywhere. So conversations that happen, I say you first have to calibrate conversation. And what do I mean when I say calibrate conversation? Before you start a difficult conversation, an important conversation, a life-changing conversation, whether it's in relationships, whether it's politics or religion, we have to set some ground rules. So we have to say, okay, what are we talking about here? Or is this important? Or are we having fun? No, you're fighting and you don't know it. So that context of what this conversation really is, so you got to calibrate it. Because there are times, and I remember doing this with my wife, she'd be fighting and I was funning, and that doesn't work. She's angry and I'm like, girl, get over it. That wasn't anything, and it's important to her. And so it helps to calibrate that conversation before you start.
Wow.
Secondly, when it's something that's really, really important, don't rely on what you think you heard. Check for understanding. And so when you seek first to understand and then to be understood, that helps. So I'm not in this conversation to be understood. I'm in this conversation to understand. And for a lot of people, being heard is enough. But if they feel like you're being flippant or you're not taking it seriously, then, it doesn't matter what you think you heard, it's just going to turn into an argument. And then finally, sometimes a good thing to do is to repeat back your saying. Here's what I think I heard you say. And repeating back says, not only did I hear you, but I've interpreted it. So when you repeat it back, they can say, no, that's not what I'm saying at all. So that's a process check. That's not what I'm saying at all. You're still not listening to me. And that's where the argument starts, because one person is fighting, another person is funning. One person hadn't really listened, they hadn't heard, and they didn't take the time to repeat it back so that person can know what they just heard and say, no, let me repeat it because you're not hearing me. So those are some like quick ones that even before you get into the conversation, that can make it a successful conversation. So we did this, we compared the lists, and again, they were able to talk about it. The discussion, I think, went on for about a half hour. And then I sent it out to a larger group. Now, this is not scientific, because if it were, I would have, divided the groups demographically. Like, some people were single in this group, some people were in a relationship, not married, some people were married. But I just wanted to see how men and women thought about this differently. So out of 30 people, this is what they came up with. Pretty much affectionate, ambitious, caring, family-oriented. And these people didn't talk to each other. They weren't in the room together. But these are the kind of top 12 that came out.
Wow.
Pretty similar to the group that collaborated.
Yeah.
And for the men, it was attractive, agreeable, consistent, emotionally stable. And when you look at the two lists, because these lists are about your values and your priorities, which is what we don't really think about that when we're 22 years old looking for a spouse. We don't think about our values and priorities. We just think about, I'm finding somebody I like. And you hadn't thought about somebody you can live with. You just thought about somebody you like, which are two different things.
Yes, sir.
And so the men's values are, I want her to be attractive. I mean, let's not lie. I mean, it wasn't your personality I saw across the room. It was your body.
Yeah.
And so there's value in that being on the list. But watch what the men are saying. I want a woman who's agreeable and who's consistent. I don't want you up and down every day. I want you emotionally stable. Crazy, I don't do crazy. And I want you to be a good communicator. And I want somebody who's respectful and supportive. And that gets into the description of a real person. Just imagine if you made this shopping list before you went out looking for someone. Now you're not just walking through taking whatever you get. So you're out there in the club or
picking up
church
everything,
or at work, picking up everything, just hungry and satisfying your appetite. Opposed to having really given thought to what did I come here for? And so if you have a shopping list, you know what you're coming for. And it does cost you, because so many relationships are damaged because I didn't have a shopping list. I just went out looking for, and my appetite drove me to get this. And then I found out later on that nothing this person has is on my list except attractive.
Wow, dangerous.
This was years ago. there was a survey done of people who have been married anywhere from 5 years to 15 years. And they asked one question. They said if marriage license were like driver's license, they expired every 5 years.
Oh, wow.
How many of you renew? 70% said they wouldn't renew it.
Oh, my goodness.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
The list that they weren't aware of was a combination of body, mind, and spirit. There were things on the list that were physical and social. There were things on the list that were intellectual and emotional, and there were things on the list that were spiritual and principled. But I arranged the list in a way that you couldn't see that because I didn't want them choosing based on that. But when they finished, the bigger group, 15% of what they chose was physical, 25% was intellectual, and the other and mental, and 60% was spiritual. That's a great balance. Now, what that says is a couple of things. It says that when people sit down and think about it and put thought to it and make a list, they can be very intentional and very sober about what they really want. It could also say that people who've been in marriage for a while now can go back and say, yeah, this is what. Now, we didn't get into, is that the person sitting next to you, that list? They want to get into that. Now, there may have been some of that when they got home. Yeah. When they got home, they may have said, hey, I'm looking at my list, and you only checked 2 things. But what that says is it's all the more reason people need to do this before they get married.
Be selective.
Wow. This is good, Robert.
Yes.
This is good.
One of the things that came up, because I was talking to a couple of people that I sent it to, and they said, well, I'm not settling. I've been told don't settle, and I'm just going to wait till Mr. Right comes along. Everybody settles. And let me explain what I mean. We say don't settle like it's a negative. But we settle in every relationship we have because all relationships, other than God and your mama, is transactional. When you stand at the altar, you're making a transaction. I promise to do this if you promise to do this. It's transaction. Now, here's why I think you settle. Let's go back to this list. Let's say, and this is what I told her. I said, let's say you found a man who was affectionate and ambitious and caring, family-oriented. I say, I'm sure there are some things on this list that they're non-starters if they don't have. They are must-have.
Yeah.
If you want a family, he needs to be family-oriented. He needs to be financially stable. You're not supporting somebody.
Yeah.
He needs to be respectful and spiritual. I said, but what if he had 9 out of the 12? Are you telling me that you would throw him back and wait on somebody with 12 out of 12? Well, no, that's not what I'm saying. I said, then you're settling. And here's the news flash. He's settling for you too. You're not everything on his list. Because that whole idea of Mr. Right and Mrs. Right does not exist. I'm going to tell you how you get Mr. Right. You can get Mr. Right and Mrs. Right, but you're not going to meet him on day one.
Wow. Come on now.
So you do settle. We settle because you settle when you go buy a car. You settle when you buy a house. That house is not the perfect house.
Yeah.
But it's got a garage. It's got all the things you need. Oh, I wish you had a more closet space. I wish you had this. But no, this is the house I want.
Yeah.
And so settling is not bad. It just says that I compromise because you're going to do that the rest of your marriage. You're going to compromise. And so if you just bent on not settling, then, that's just a bad way of thinking about it. So the person that asked me to do that, I said, I'm going to guarantee you something. I'm going to guarantee you that all the couples that go into the room will not choose. There's one word on there they will not choose. And when I brought them all back out in the group, I said, there's one word that I told her you would not choose. And they were like, oh, what is it? And they said, love. I said, no, love was on there, but not the word love. And the word was maturity. And it was on the list. And out of the 30, no one chose it. Now, why is that the most important ingredient to me? Because you don't fall in love. You grow in love. And if that whole idea was like, oh, I met, and I'm crazy, I love them. No, you like them. You like them because there's some things that are valuable to you that they have. But there's a ton of things you don't know about that person yet. I don't care if you dated for 5 years, there's still a ton of things you don't know about that person. And you're going to discover those things over years because you got to see them in every scenario. How they fight, how they love, how they, and so if you're going to grow into love, then that growth is going to happen as that person matures and as you mature. Mm. So what is maturity? Well, there's a stage of maturity, and I'm not talking about just getting older, because some people don't mature even though they get biologically older. I'm talking about how we mature in relationships. So let me give you an example. So when we're born, we're all born in a stage of dependency. And this comes from the Stephen Covey model of 7 habits. We're all born in a stage of dependency. We're babies and we can't do anything. We're depending on somebody else for everything, to keep us alive, to feed us, to clothe us, to shelter us, to make us feel warm and safe. So how do babies tell you that they're wet?
They cry.
How do babies tell you they're in pain?
They cry.
Why do they cry? Because they can't talk.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only way they know how to communicate. So in the stages of maturity, there's a couple of things. So when that baby is wet, responsibility is it to clean that baby. It's the parent. If the baby is hungry, whose responsibility is to feed it?
The parent.
Yeah, parent. So there's 2 areas of maturity that we try to grow our kids up into. We want them to come out of the stage of dependence and go to the stage of independence. And what does that mean? You can tell me when you're hurting. You can tell me when you're in pain. You can tell me when you want something. Don't stand there and cry. And we even tell our kids at about 5 or 6, hey, use your word. And they have to take responsibility. If their room is dirty, we say, no, go clean your room. Because we're trying to make them independent people, apart from being dependent on us for everything. Because we're preparing them to go out into the world and meet other people. Well, there's 2 sides to independence. There's a negative independence and there's a positive independence. Negative independence says, I don't need anyone. I can do it all myself. A positive independence says, I can do a lot of things myself, but I still need other people in my life because I can't do everything by myself. Mm-hmm. Negative independence is dangerous because that's the person you want to avoid, because you'll become a codependent because they're still in the form of dependence, really. And positive independence is a person who's ready to take on other people into their lives. They know how to communicate what they need, and they take responsibility for action. But independence is not the highest form of maturity. It's interdependence. What does that say? I was relying upon my parents to keep me alive, to feed me, clothe me, shelter me. I became independent. I can do that for myself. I have a job. I have a house. I have all those things, but I'm still lacking in some things. And I need somebody else to become interdependent with. But the only way you can become interdependent is you've made a shopping list. Because you have to know what areas you need someone to come and fill in. If you haven't figured that out, you just go get another independent person. And you have 2 independent people trying to satisfy each other, and it's conflict. It's just conflict. Because independence says, I don't need anybody. I can do it myself. I don't need anybody. I can do it myself. And so we have 2 people who don't need each other. It's conflict. But when I got my list, I know what I'm looking for. I know my areas of faults and where I'm lacking. So here's what I'm looking for. So when I go shopping, now I know what I'm looking for. Interdependent. And so interdependent people communicate using their big words. They're the ones that check for understanding. They take responsibility for their mistakes and for their faults. When you have a grown man yelling and screaming and crying, guess what he's acting like?
A baby.
A baby.
Jeez.
Wow.
When you have a grown woman saying, well, it ain't my fault. I don't care what you say. That's a baby. Not ready for a relationship. Not even being ready for a relationship. Until they can communicate, take responsibility, they're not ready for a relationship. Now, the problem is a lot of people get married way down at the independent stage. So they've got to get up to that stage together, and that's going to be a lot of conflict. And that's why, a lot of coaches and people stay in business trying to get people to that point. that list is important because without that list, you have no idea what you're looking for.
As he says on Lead to Greatness, you are definitely dropping some knowledge bombs. And we say on TMC Nuggets, you have given us so many nuggets. Yeah. As you were talking, I just was thinking about, oh my God, all the singles that are going to get a hold to this great information so they can be more wise in their selective process. And even for those that are married, just to think about, what we are doing, the tips and tricks you gave us. And as you were talking, I even thought about Cedric and myself. Like when he's talking, he may say one word, and I think we had this conversation.
Just happened this week. Was it yesterday?
Just yesterday.
What was it?
You used the word do, and you meant life, and I thought you meant task.
Yeah.
I was like, well, you
that
said
just happened.
Do. You wasn't talking about my life. You said, do I enjoy what I do?
I'm talking about doing life, and she's talking about task. And it was just a miscommunication on what we was talking about. So,
absolutely. Yeah. And I have my notes here, Robert. I'm like, I know why Cedric enjoys talking to you. I have
notes.
Look
at this.
Yeah, my notes.
She got pages of
I have my notes because I think that the information that you gave us today is so valuable, and definitely for those who desire to be married and are going to find themselves selecting a spouse. When you said the grocery store analogy, I thought about myself, and the reason why I brought that up, because we definitely know that if we don't have wisdom and have a plan, it can be costly. Yeah. And when it's in life, it takes some time.
It's a lot different than the grocery store.
It's a lot different than a bounce back from a $300 grocery bill to
trauma and everything.
And all of that. So I'm like, this is amazing.
Yeah. And let me just say this. I missed saying this. I have this theory about marriage or the ceremony. So when two people are standing at the altar, I believe they have two different visions of what they're looking at. So typically in a traditional marriage, the man is looking at the woman he wants to marry. She's perfect. Yeah. Her hair is on point, her makeup's on point. She's spent 2 months starving herself to get into their wedding dress, and he's like, "That's her. I don't want her to change. This is the woman I want to marry." The guy standing there, his hair is tight, been to the barber, shaved, everything. And the woman is looking at him saying, "I'm marrying the man I want him to become." So one person is marrying the present, the other person is marrying the future.
Jeez. Wow,
and they see the potential in that person. So the person who is marrying the future is trying to change that person into who they want them to become. And that person starts resisting. "Why are you trying to change me? I mean, this shirt was fine when I married you, and this." And so that's a lot of conflict because they haven't talked about that. She's trying to mold him into who she wants him to become because she sees that potential in him. And she's settled. She says, "He's got 8 out of the 12 things I want. I'll work on the other." And he's like, "She got 5 and that's all I need." Change. And she is going to change. And so when she starts to change, whether it be physically or emotionally, he gets disappointed. And when he doesn't change, she gets disappointed. And that's where the counseling comes in. And that's why that maturity. And so many people give up and they miss out on the good stuff on the other end.
Robert. If someone wants to connect with you and what you're doing, where should they go?
They can find me on social media, Instagram. They can find me on Twitter, on Facebook, and LinkedIn. Or they can just send me an email.
I believe this podcast alone do 2 things. It's going to save some single or individual that's single getting into something that they're going to regret later on. And also it's going to calibrate that individual that is in a relationship. And it's like, if we're going to be together, this is what we need to do. This is what we need to do. This is where we need to get. So Robert, thank you.
So we hope you enjoyed today's episode. And if you did, we want to encourage you to go ahead and subscribe. Click the like button and turn on your notifications. That way you'll be notified each time you upload a video.
So we want to thank you for joining us today on TMC. Looking forward to hanging out with you again on next week as we continue to help you take your relationship from surviving to thriving. Bye. See you next week.